Did you know that 90% of startups will fail? This mostly because at some point they're just unable to return a profit. That's no different with web scraping. Most people just start with a simple script, but it never actually scales into a profitable business. Because there are just so many hidden costs specific to web scraping that over time just take away all the margins. So today, I'm going to show you some real numbers, go through some case studies, and share my lessons for profitability. Good afternoon. My name is Victor, CEO of WebAutomation.io, and I live, sleep, eat these numbers every day. I've run dozens of experiments, gross profits, CAC, sales metrics, and I've made a lot of mistakes. So today, you don't have to, because I'm going to share some of my lessons. Now, who is this for? It's not a CFO talk. It's for anyone who's building, buying, or trying to scale a web scraping operation. I took my time and I got some really good data for you guys. I went through our internal contracts, went through our platform deals, spoke to some other CEOs of web scraping companies, looked through some benchmarks online to actually understand what good looks like. So first, let's actually look at what a web scraping business could look like. The first one is quite easy. A traditional service business is you pay me some money, I'll spend my time, and you pay me for my time, and I'll build a web scraper for you. Any money I get, I'll use it to pay my other expenses, and at the end, I take a profit. Then you have managed service, which is in the lines of the professional services, but a little bit more long-term, more investment on both sides, longer-term contracts. And then you have the sexy stuff, which is the platform and products, which obviously have a lot of higher margins and more scalability, and more attractive for investors and exits. And I think what most people in this room will be is an internal function, probably a smaller unit in a company, doing some web scraping, supporting a much bigger picture. So let's go. Point one. Let's understand the economics of a web scraping business. For me, this is my most important metric, cost of goods. So how much does it actually cost to actually build a product or service? And I think for most people in this room, this is what they can control. So some things that are not cost of goods, anything to do with sales, marketing, administration, etc., these don't go under cost of goods. It's just anything you spend to actually build your product or service. Now let's look at what a typical web scraping business could look like from a cost of goods perspective compared to a traditional software business. So the very first thing you notice is the traditional software business, there are no proxy costs, which is one of the biggest costs in a web scraping business. It is definitely one of our biggest costs as well. But typically, this could move around, but typically this is how you distribute $1 of expenditure to build a product in web scraping. Now we compare overall margins with a traditional software business. And so far you're saying, well, a software business looks, or a software SaaS business looks a lot more interesting and better margins than a typical average web scraping business. But there's a solution to that. Point two, you've got to understand your margins. You've got to understand your numbers. So let's actually look at what does good look like. So I looked at all the benchmarks and all the companies that have been very successful and got the highest exits. This is what some of their numbers will look like. Very high gross margins, high NRR, which means customers are coming back and buying some more, and a good net profit. A good net profit is sub 20%. So how do you get a web scraping business to SaaS-like margins? I'm just going to give you 3 levers from all my experiments I think you can pull to be able to get those margins. So the very first thing is that you just have to start. Step 1. When you start, the margins are never ever going to be great. There's probably going to be a lot of manual work in the background, but you got to start. And your gross margins are going to be in the sub 50%, but that's okay because there are more levers you can pull. Step 2, which is a very high cost for us, and I'm sure it's a very high cost when I look at the Zai guys. Every year they're coming up with new products. This is a huge amount to spend on R&D. You just can't stop. You just have to keep on innovating, looking for better ways to do things, smarter ways to do things. You just can't stop. You can automate support, because support goes into your gross margins, and automate QA as well. That's an easy one and a quick win for us as well. We've used to improve our margins. I mean, you can optimize proxy usage, which is by far one of our biggest costs. Biggest costs, I'm sure most people here as well. And then step 3, to get to the highest margin points, is you start thinking about productizing any services that you have. What does that mean? You have any custom jobs, any custom scrapers? Start thinking, how can I turn this into products? Products could just be more than one person is using exactly the same solution. And then stronger customer success. From my experience, especially with web scraping, most of our customers, once they're successful, always want more. And we've seen a very strong correlation with customer success and people buying more. So yes, the web scraping business can look really good. And these are some of the reasons that I've found. As I mentioned earlier, if your customer is successful, that's the key part. If your customer is successful, the churn is pretty low and it's quite sticky because they understand the hard work that's gone into actually setting everything up right. Things are working. They've integrated this into workflows and internal flows. Switching costs are pretty high, and they'll be just happy to stay with someone that works. It's also very high upsell potential. Most of our customers that are successful always want more data sources, always want fresher data. So there's always high upsell. And the pricing model on the web scraping business is great compared to traditional SaaS, where sometimes it could be limited to just number of seats, or it could just be buy a software and that's it. But typically, with the web scraping business, there's room for unlimited scalability. So point 3, not all data is worth scraping. It's another thing I've learned. So let's go into some case studies now, okay? And I'll give semi-real examples from our company. So we've got a customer. It's got a 10K budget. It's not bad, okay? They want to scrape roughly 20 OTA sites, all very similar sites. They've been struggling, have a lot of manual operations. They're giving it to you. Complexity is high, but you built a solution. Automated crawlers for all 20 sites, all the same schema, one API, all delivered to the customer. Fantastic. Now, this is what a typical numbers could look like. You get that 10K revenue, how do you distribute it? So you spend 4K actually building and maintaining the product or service. You got $6,000 left. Got to pay your bills, pay your staff, marketing expenses. Got $1,000 left. 10% profits. That's not bad. But where we need to get to is the benchmark. We need to get to 20% net profit. So as I said, you can pull those levers, reduce your cost of goods, reduce your operating expenses, and try and get that net profit as high as possible. I'll give another example. Oh, this is fantastic, 100K a month. We did it. We got the big customer. Finally, we've been working so hard. It's going to pay us 100K a month. But it's got 100 plus random sites, no correlation, no commonalities. He wants everything real time, every second. Solution is to build 100+ very custom solutions, all monitored, very independent. This could happen. It just takes very, very large amounts of money to actually maintain and build the products. You have high cost of goods, a lot of manual stuff going on in the background, very little gross profits. That all goes away. You have nothing as a net profit. I'm going to leave it to the questions though, but I want you guys to tell me, would you take on this project? There's no right or wrong answer. But this is a real life scenario, and we made a decision to go either way. So the future, I guess it's not the future, I guess it's today, because that's all we've talked about today. I'm going to mention a few things on how we're using AI to actually improve our profit margins, kind of in 3 different sections: cost reduction, going into product, and our GTM. So one of the things I'm really liking what our guys are doing in terms of cost reduction is we're using the AI to actually do intelligent resource allocation. So we're picking the right proxy provider to use, the right technology to use, and that's making us a lot more efficient. And in terms of go-to-market as well, I'm a big fan. I use a lot of AI sales co-pilots. I use a lot of stuff to automate a lot of our sales activities, ChatGPT, Codex, etc. But AI is a big factor in how you can actually improve your profitability. So let me give you some steps what you can actually do tomorrow. The first things is you need to actually understand what your costs are. Sounds simple, but just understand your cost. You can break it down line by line and just track it. Test at least one AI workflow. It's real. Just commit to something this quarter. Either you're automating QA or you're even doing something operational. And then find something to productize. It's just the easiest way to actually improve your margins. Instead of building for every customer, build something that multiple people could use. And then double down on customer success. To us, that's been the easiest thing that we've done. You have exactly the same customer, spend more time with them, and typically they always want to buy more. So I'm going to summarize in conclusion 3 things you can take away. 1, know your cost. It's a lot of hidden costs in web scraping. Understand your margins, write it down, track it. And yes, you can get SaaS-like margins in web scraping. Understand which levers to pull, and just have a game plan on how you can get there. So I love talking about numbers, something I'm good at and I enjoy. So more than happy if anyone wants to talk numbers with me. Another thing I'm happy to do as well is I've got a very famous spreadsheet, which I've been working on for 5 years, which tracks everything. So every day it gets updated and I see every single number that is relevant to me in my business. Happy to share that with anyone if anyone wants it. Thank you very much.
Victor, thank you so much for being transparent, sharing all those numbers. We all like numbers and data here. Let me know if anybody has any questions, but I've just got 1 or 2 in the meantime. That example of that not so profitable project, what did you do?
We said no.
Okay.
We said no.
I said no.
But there's no right or wrong answer.
There isn't. There isn't.
Because there was a path to actually improving the margins. Yeah. But we just saw it as too much risk.
This is what always happens, right? There's always some path, something you could possibly do, but quite often it can be a lot of work and wishful thinking.
What would you do?
I don't know. It depends on the project. I'll probably say no. Yeah, so look, the other one was, I guess maybe you see that sometimes at the project outset, but what can typically happen in scraping, right, is of course something changes mid-project is way more common, and that's actually what makes it very difficult. So like in the case where you did your estimated profitability at the start and it looked okay, but a little bit into the project, suddenly your infrastructure costs have had to go way up. Sometimes that's even out of your own control. What do you do in those situations?
100%. That happens all the time. And that's one of the reasons why we didn't want to take anything that was loss-making. Because if something happens, it's going to get worse for us. So what I always do is, it's the same thing. There's 3 levers I try and pull. So we just need to get the client going. Okay. So we're not too worried about margins at that point. Get them going. If something changes, so we get them going and we get to a good point where, okay, we've optimized cost. And then something happens. And then the costs go up again. We go through the same process again. So sometimes it could take a week, sometimes it could take 2 months, sometimes it could take 3 weeks. But what I've realized is there's always a solution to everything. And that's why we're still in business. So even if costs go up, or size gets more difficult, or there's a new anti-bot solution, eventually we'll find a solution and we figure out a way to bring the cost down.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd say we try and take a similar approach. It's rare you can't do something, but you have to go through that pain in the middle. It's so common. Guys, let me know if anybody has any other questions. Otherwise, I think we might take a break. So after this, we'll have 30 minutes and then we'll meet back here. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you.